members to leave. So I think it's important to remember too on our side, Tim, that everywhere you can post it, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, I don't know, even Reddit, like that is so important to try to do your best to get the information out by really all means possible. And so it was nice to talk to Trisha kind of on her thoughts and their feelings as well covering the storm.
And not just posting it in all of those places, but, I think the words that they chose to use and the way they communicated it, and you're really speaking in plain English, right, is so important. We can show you numbers. We can show you what we love to do is put out a river gauge or something and show you how high the river is going to rise. If you just say it's going to be catastrophic flooding, there are going to be a ton of landslides, and it's going to be worse than this, that, and the other storm that you remember from before. That's very effective communication. And I just remember when they put that out, I reshared it to my page, even here in the Piedmont, which isn't even super close to the mountains where they were hit so badly. And it went viral. And I'm hopeful that that got to a lot of people that lived there too. And they saw that and they read it. But I think, it's important for everyone to remember, if you know something that's going to be really, really bad, us as forecasters, we need to get that message out as urgently and using as clear messaging as we possibly can. And so big kudos to them. That definitely saved lives just from the choice of words. I mean, it's really important, the power of words that you can put down on paper and get in front of people, in this case digitally.
Yeah, I actually asked Clay as well, the social media manager who wrote the post. And of course, there were a lot of people who looked at it before it went out. He didn't just go rogue. But he said that if he could give people any advice about these storms in particular, it would be once you're getting historical context. So once you're starting to see comparisons to previous floods, whether it's from a tropical system, from, of course, 1940, 1916, he's like, anytime that you see a post referencing historical context, that's when you need to really be paying attention. I thought that was an interesting thing. You don't hear that often from them, but historical context, again, that's kind of the tag that he said you should be paying extra attention with these storms.
Right, and we're not always able to do that or make those comparisons, but, to think of a hypothetical, what if there was a storm that was coming into Charlotte and they said this is going to be worse than Hugo? Yeah, people would take that seriously for sure. But you better make sure you're right when you're saying that, and they were right on the money with this one, and like we said, it saved a lot of lives.
Yeah, it certainly did. Well, of course, we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place, with a lot more Hurricane Helene coverage on the 1 year later as the approaching anniversary comes this weekend. Tim, thanks for being with us. We'll see you tomorrow. And, of course, Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich will be back, too.
Thank you for joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. You usually don't see me this late. I've been working a different shift today and yesterday. I'll be back on a regularly scheduled program tomorrow. But look, it's great to be here with you this evening on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Jeb is also here in studio, so we don't want to waste any time. We want to get now to President Donald Trump. So today, President Trump addressed the UN. Some of the big highlights before we get into this and get into his address. President Trump criticized migration policies, green energy initiatives, and failures to end regional conflicts in a speech at the United Nations this morning. So in case you missed it, we want to take you out there now where President Trump, again, addressing the UN. Let's take a listen in.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. And I don't mind making this speech without a teleprompter, because the teleprompter is not working. I feel very happy to be up here with you nevertheless, and that way you speak more from the heart. I can only say that whoever's operating this teleprompter is in big trouble. Hello, Madam First Lady. Thank you very much for being here. And Madam President, Mr. Secretary General, First Lady of the United States, distinguished delegates, ambassadors, and world leaders. 6 years have passed since I last stood in this grand hall and addressed a world that was prosperous and at peace in my first term. Since that day, the guns of war have shattered the peace I forged on 2 continents. An era of calm and stability gave way to one of the great crises of our time. And here in the United States, 4 years of weakness, lawlessness, and radicalism under the last administration delivered our nation into a repeated set of disasters. 1 year ago, our country was in deep trouble, but today, just 8 months into my administration, we are the hottest country anywhere in the world, and there is no other country even close. America is blessed with the strongest economy, the strongest borders, the strongest military, the strongest friendships, and the strongest spirit of any nation on the face of the earth. This is indeed the golden age of America. We are rapidly reversing the economic calamity we inherited from the previous administration, including ruinous price increases and record-setting inflation like we've never had before. Under my leadership, energy costs are down, gasoline prices are down, grocery prices are down, mortgage rates are down, and inflation has been defeated. The only thing that's up is the stock market, which just hit a record high. In fact, it hit a record high 48 times in the last short period of time. Growth is surging, manufacturing is booming. The stock market, as I said, is doing better than it's ever done. And all of you in this room benefit by that, almost everybody. And importantly, workers' wages are rising at the fastest pace in more than 60 years. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? In 4 years of President Biden, we had less than $1 trillion of new investment into the United States. In just 8 months since I took office, we have secured commitments and money already paid for $17 trillion. Think of it, 4 years, less than $1 trillion, 8 months, much more than $17 trillion is being invested in the United States. And it's now pouring in from all parts of the world. We've implemented the largest tax cuts in American history and the largest regulation cuts in American history, making this once and again the best country on earth to do business. And many of the people in this room are investing in America, and it's turned out to be an awfully good investment during this 8-month period. In my first term, I built the greatest economy in the history of the world. We had the best economy ever, history of the world. And I'm doing the same thing again, but this time it's actually much bigger and even better. The numbers far surpass my record-setting first term. On our southern border,
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturden. Right there is President Trump from earlier delivering a speech to the at the UN Assembly today. Again, that is from earlier today. We'll get back to that at some point, but we want to talk about a big announcement from NASA this week, the Artemis 2 mission. And so NASA says it hopes to send astronauts on a 10-day trip around the moon as soon as February. I want to bring in CNN's Ivan Rodriguez, who's covering the story for us. So Ivan, regarding the Artemis 2 mission, what else can we expect to hear this week?
Well, Nick, tomorrow morning, in fact, NASA will be holding a press conference with the Artemis 2 crew. That is the crew of 4 veteran astronauts who were already selected. This mission will build upon the uncrewed Artemis 1 success back in 2022, and it's also going to help set up Artemis 3 and future missions. Artemis 3 will mark the humanity's return to the lunar surface.
So, Ivan, NASA has announced, as I just mentioned, 10 people who will join the agency's astronaut corps. So what do we know about who these folks are?
Well, we know that the 10 people who were selected from a pool of 8,000 applicants, and they include 6 women and 4 men. This astronaut class actually marks the first in which there are more women than men, according to NASA. And among the candidates are former military, geologists, mechanical, aerospace, and biomedical engineers. An interesting story is that each class of incoming astronauts receives a special nickname selected by the prior class. Now, the 2021 group, they were dubbed the Flies as a nod to how rapidly the class was likely to be assigned on missions to orbit, and that class is the one to give now this group's nickname.
So break down, what kind of training will this new class receive, and are they eligible for future missions?
So during their 2-year training, the astronauts will learn about NASA's vision and future, and their vision for that. And they'll also take classes in geology and water survival and space health. And they'll also be able to train in high-performance jets, NASA says. Upon completion, the new class will then join the 48 other members of the space agency's astronaut corps and then become eligible for flight assignments. It's still not clear exactly what other flight assignments they could be eligible for, but some of the crew members headed to Mars in the future could include any of NASA's 10 newest astronauts.
Again, a big announcement for the Artemis program. That is CNN's Ivan Rodriguez for us. Ivan, thank you for your time, man. All right, so we want to head to break. We'll be back in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We want to head to Waxhaw because there is a meeting right now happening. Folks in the community are upset. A lot of folks there are upset. Some concerns there surrounding a development there. There's a lot of development happening in a place like Waxhaw, but there's a new development that has been controversial. I believe this is a housing development. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jeb. But our Walker Lawson covered this story earlier. You can find that story right now on our digital platforms. But that meeting where they're discussing this proposed development is happening right now. Let's take a listen in.
Vote no, and voting no does not mean a no for future projects. It just gives us time to breathe. Thank you.
And Mr. Daniel Ferris.
Good evening, Mayor Murray, Board of Commissioners. Before I begin, I'd like to thank every single resident here at the site. Thank you for everybody that's shown up now to 3 meetings to voice their opinions and have your voices heard. It means so much to see so many people engaged. Tonight, before the Board of Commissioners is the views of Olivia. It's been a hot topic now for several Board of Commissioners meetings, coming up now on 4 months technically, if you include the June meeting with the Planning Board also giving its recommendation not to see the project move forward. So many great points have been echoed repeatedly now. I'd hate to wait the Board of Commissioners' time because I'm so sure so many people want to see the vote and what that outcome may be, because it will set a keystone for our future. Unfortunately, I believe this keystone will be in the wrong direction, and that's why I proclaimed that this is the wrong project for the town of Waxhaw and the Waxhaw Parkway, and I believe so today that this still is the wrong project. Just recently, the applicant amended their petition to meet the minimum standards. The minimum standards of commercial mixed use. But so many residents tonight have stood before you with a passion and a love for Waxhaw. The minimum standards, the love and passion of Waxhaw is overflowing here tonight. And I've got to say, I look forward to something more than the minimum standards. One of the things that I fear about this project that I've repeatedly said is while the applicant essentially is increasing its density, it cannot support it without amending its parking ratios. But part of those parking ratios, 4% of those parking ratios are actually reliant upon more parking on street. On-street parking leading towards the roundabout, I believe, would be a devastating effect. It would be counter to actually even being an artery. Counter to is actually what we did in Amavi. And one of the recommendations of the Planning Board was not to allow on-street parking to facilitate traffic movement. Parkway is intended to facilitate traffic movement. Yes, this is a parcel that is now offset with that internal movement, but it still would be an adopted road, and we should still support above minimum standards. I think that this project is in the wrong direction, and I don't know how else to put it besides that there are so many miscues in this project, and I'm asking you kindly not to vote in favor of it. I'm kindly asking you to vote no. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you to everyone who spoke tonight. I'll just remind everyone that we now have the rest of the agenda to go through. This is an official meeting, so do please contain your exuberance for or against comments being made, either by commissioners or presenters. We are actually here discussing things for the future of Waxhaw, so we appreciate your calmness as we do that. We're all trying to be as thoughtful as we can up here, and I think that works best if we're able to concentrate on what we're doing up here and not worrying too much about what's going on in the audience. So please contain your exuberance at the end of the day. Thank you. Alrighty, next up is the consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda. It is a proclamation in support of Constitution Week. So ahead of our vote, I will go ahead and read this proclamation, as I feel this is one of those things that, we all need to recognize and realize just how important the Constitution is, as recent events shows that it's often under threat. So, proclamation in support of Constitution Week. I apologize. We haven't moved yet off of general comments since we haven't voted on the consent agenda, so we'll take a step back. I apologize to one Miss Valerie Summers. You were missed on the list, so do please come on down and share your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, Barbie.
My name is Valerie Summers. I've lived in Waxhaw for over 20 years. Let me start by stating a few things I think some of you have forgotten. You serve the residents of Waxhaw. You were elected by the residents of Waxhaw to be the voice of the residents of Waxhaw. I think Joe Pesci said it well in the movie With Honors. Our founding fathers didn't think of themselves as leaders. They wanted a government of citizens, not royalty, a government of listeners, not lecturers. You're all servants of the people. The day that you decide to, quote, silence the noise, end quote, of the people, and that's a direct quote from a sitting commissioner, that's the day that you're guilty of dereliction of duty and the day that you should have resigned from your position. Now, as far as the views at Olivia rezoning request, I'd like to reiterate several points that perhaps some of you didn't hear if you were busy silencing the noise. They've refused to meet the minimum standards that you're in office to pass and maintain. This alone should be enough to make every one of you vote no. The schools the residents of this development would be assigned to are already above capacity, and this doesn't even consider the students that will be added with the nearly 4,000 already approved residences. 300 to 600 or more residents would put an additional strain on town resources such as law enforcement and emergency services on top of the already approved developments. And this, I'm sure, would lead to an increase in residents' taxes since previous boards created a town with a grossly unbalanced tax base of more than 90% residential to less than 10% commercial. If you approve this rezoning, you're also adding anywhere from 300 to 900 more vehicles to the almost 8,000 vehicles being added from already approved developments. The small section of the parkway that this development would build is not a complete road. It's a 2-lane road that goes nowhere. It cannot and will not relieve traffic congestion in any way. The owners of the additional parcels to create a full leg of the parkway are at this time, to my knowledge, in no way bound to build their portions of said road, and that could take decades before it happens. Which further supports the point that the Olivia project will in no way relieve but will exacerbate the current traffic problems. The infrastructure for this out-of-control growth is just nowhere in sight. It's irresponsible, unjust, and arrogant for you to approve this rezoning. It's a slap in the face of every resident that has made their voice heard. If you think there are a majority of residents who want this, then find a way to let the residents decide. Voting yes for this shows everyone the disrespect and disregard that you have for the office you hold and the people you're supposed to serve. Thank you.
Alrighty. Thank you. So we'll go to the consent agenda. We have a proclamation. This is a proclamation in support of Constitution Week. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law. Whereas September 17th, 2025 marks the 238th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Continental Congress. Whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate it. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Robert J. Murray III, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the town of Waxhaw in the state of North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th to September 23rd, 2025 as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties. Duly adopted and effected the 23rd day of September 2025. Can I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is so adopted. We have nothing for recognition, presentations, or public hearings, so we will move forward to our presentation by Kevin Robinson and the rezoning petition of Olivia. Again, I remind folks, this is an official meeting. We will be discussing topics related to this project, so please contain your exuberance. I know this is a very emotional topic, but we're trying to get this done and get it done as fairly as we possibly can. So thank you.
Thank
Kevin?
you, Mayor and Commissioners. I think everybody's somewhat familiar with this at this point. I am going to go through this a little bit quickly, try to get to some of the items at the end where there are some changes that have been made, and focus on that with you. Again, this is a request by Tyson Carlton Mark trustee. Total of 4 parcels. One of those is a portion of a parcel. The other one was annexed at the August 26th meeting, or maybe that was August 12th. No, it was in August. From employment center to conditional zoning mixed use CZMU. The total parcel size is 33.34 acres. As has been mentioned, it is currently zoned EC, and then it's also in the future, Waxhaw future land use as EC Employment Center. So those do line up. What is being requested is rezoning it to conditional zoning mixed use. So there can be apartments there, as well as commercial up front along the parkway. This was the original proposed site design. As you can see right there, originally there was about 900 feet of parkway, some trail connections, a stream buffer, path 24 to be connected in the rear, and gated access. Commercial was up front right here along the Parkway East. Most of that remains the same. Originally, this was proposed for up to 307 multifamily dwelling units and no more than 20,000 square feet of commercial, which was around 10%. Actually, when we went through and looked at the calculation, it was about 13%, still under the 20 to 60% mix that CZMU zoning district calls for. There were TIA improvements there, which included the Parkway East segment and Public Road A, and a street stub from Public Road cul-de-sac to adjacent property, gated secondary access to residential. Staff's recommendations on that were that the existing property line, the parkway would extend to the existing property line, which was originally in the TIA. That would be an additional 300 linear feet, include a stream crossing, removal of the gate at the second road connection to residential units to improve resident connectivity, and then also additional commercial space to at least meet the minimum of the CZMU zoning district land use ratio of 20%, which will favor the town's property tax balance. Some of the meetings that happened, there was a neighborhood meeting on this back in August of 2024 at the Waxhaw Elementary School. Planning Board did hear this on June 17th, did vote 3-1 to recommend denial of the conditional rezoning. Board of Commissioners first heard this on August 12th, 2025. The Board of Commissioners also heard it on August 26, 2025. Staff found there to be some merits for the project, recommended additional conditions. It was continued at that time to this meeting. Just to recap what's going on with this project, the small portion of land right here, which is a part of one of the parcels, that is proposed to remain EC. The rest of this is proposed to be conditional zoning mixed use. And this portion over here, which is to the north, we're looking at this sideways, this was annexed in at the 26th hearing. Since then, the applicant has agreed to remove the gate between commercial and residential sections. They have also agreed to extend the Parkway East an additional 300 feet. That would be the 1,200 feet total originally in the TIA. And they've agreed upon that with the TMA and with bonding and phasing of improvements. So again, that was previously 900. The applicant has also agreed to add a minimum of 7,500 square feet of commercial office space for residents to lease in one building, and a reduction of units, residential units from 307 to 302. Presumably that is the location of where where that office space was previously. Approximate commercial is 20.7 of the total development. Again, we did recalculate that using the building coverage ratio. Before, we believe it to be around 13, so it has increased to just over the minimum 20% threshold that staff recommended as part of the CZMU zoning. The applicant is seeking a reduction of no more than 11% of required parking minimums. And I want to interject here. I did speak with Blair. Our calculations on this are still the same. We do believe, we counted the number of spaces that are shown on the plan, and we do believe that that is a total of 6.2% reduction. We didn't see any changes in that, so I think that's basically the same. If the applicant would like a higher percentage of that, I can let them address that with you, but we believe that's the same as it was before. It's a reduction of about 6%. The applicant agrees to construct the 180 feet plus or minus of Trail 24. That was shown on the plan, but there was the wording on there previously was a little bit ambiguous, so we wanted to make sure that was included, that would be done by the applicant. These were the three major items. The extension of the Parkway East to the original boundary.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. That is the Board of Commissioners meeting there in Waxhaw. Folks there are concerned about proposed development. And so they're talking about that, they're discussing those plans in that growing community. All right, so we want to take a quick break. We'll be back in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. Jeb is here in studio. So we want to get to something that's happening live. Happening live right now. The UN is meeting in New York. The meeting is happening right now. We heard from President Trump a little earlier, his speech from earlier. According to different schedules provided by NBC, he's expected to speak a little later. Again, that is unclear, but right now let's take a listen in to what's being said.
And endorses the idea of establishing a special ad hoc tribunal to try the perpetrators of aggression. For no war can be profitable for the aggressors. Wars cannot pay off to the aggressors, also in terms of economy. States and nations deserve full compensation also from those who started the Second World War. Because if we want to build a community of states, of democratic states, a common European Union, then we have to agree together that war must not pay off in terms of economy to any aggressor. Ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned, we are currently facing a whole range of global and local challenges. The eyes of the world, and ours too, are currently looking at the Middle East. Poland, like many other countries in the world, is following with concern the situation in this region, in the Middle East, where, as a result of the brutal attacks by Hamas on October the 7th, 2023, the conflict has escalated. Israel, like any other country, has the right to self-defense. Actions undertaken by Israel, however, must comply with international law, including international humanitarian law. Poland continues to advocate for a two-state solution to the conflict in the Middle East, in such a way as to give both the Palestinians and the Israelis the right to live in peace and security. Poland consistently supports international efforts to improve the situation in the Middle East and calls on the UN to take action. Ladies and gentlemen, Poland has no colonial past, which is why we are a reliable and trustworthy partner for Asian and African countries. What is more, we ourselves, we Poles, were victims of colonial policies pursued by superpowers, so we understand perfectly well the instruments used by neo-imperial powers, and we do not consent to them destabilizing certain regions of the world. As President of the Republic of Poland, I will pay particular attention to developing our cooperation with various regions of the world. I'm referring to the African continent. We can all see how the ongoing wars, conflicts, and terrorist attacks undermine the efforts of proud African nations to live and develop in safe and just conditions. The world must stand with all those affected by insecurity and help them restore peace. We do not consent to neo-imperial powers destabilizing, for instance, the Sahel, in order to arbitrarily manage global migration flows or apply migratory pressure. Nor do we consent to international criminal groups profiting from human trafficking and slave labor. We also want, and it is obvious as Poland, to develop relations with the countries of Asia and the Pacific. The role of this region in shaping the international order in the 21st century has significantly grown. This dynamic economic development is, however, accompanied by growing geopolitical tensions, which affects stability, prosperity, and security also in other regions of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, as Polish people, we are concerned about the negative impact of global crises. But as President of Poland, I want to say openly, here, in front of this international community that we are also deeply concerned and we are aware of the mistakes made by our Western partners, friends, and neighbors. Yes, I agree with President Donald Trump that in recent years, and that is something that we were warning against as Poles, and this was the signal sent also by Central European countries, Eastern European countries. Europe is deep in ideological madness. This led to bad decisions on migration. This led to green craziness, green madness, the Green Deal, which is destroying economic markets and also agricultural markets. Yes, the very same Europe, our friends and our partners with whom we want to build a common European Union. For many years, we're subsidizing the Russian Federation buying Russian cheap gas. Ladies and gentlemen, in Poland as well as in Central Europe, we know all of that, and we are glad whenever the leaders of the European countries, Western European countries, draw conclusions and when they listen to our voice. Ladies and gentlemen, development and humanitarian aid are an integral part of our country's foreign policy in terms of building global peace, security, and development. We see it as a joint investment in our future, security, stability, and prosperity. We are present with our support in many areas in Africa, in Eastern Europe, and in the Middle East. Distinguished delegates, Poland, a co-founder of the United Nations, is the world's 20th largest economy, and a country which has successfully transformed itself over the past 30 years from a developing country into a developed country and from a centrally planned economy into a market economy. This unique experience allows us to make a significant contribution to UN discussions on development, combining the perspectives of the global East and the global West, as well as North and South. Given our potential and experience, we consistently seek to participate in the works of the G20, a format that serves as a bridge in these turbulent times. We also hope that the invitation to cooperate and to participate in the next summit of the group issued by the United States of America, for which I'm grateful to President Donald Trump, will translate into Poland's permanent presence in this community. Ladies and gentlemen, human rights are one of the three main pillars on which the United Nations system is based. We cannot talk about true peace if we do not protect human rights of everyone, of every person without exception. Peace is not only an absence of armed conflicts, it is also justice, equality, and respect for human dignity. Therefore, the protection of human rights must be a priority in any process of building peace and security. We can clearly see dramatic consequences of the Russian aggression, also in terms of human rights and humanitarian issues. Our priority, the priority of Poland, of Polish people, is also the situation of human rights in Belarus. We must firmly defend human rights also in the most fundamental dimension. I'm speaking about the right to life of the defenseless, from conception to natural death. We are protecting our families as the place of happiness, love, and bringing up children. We are speaking up as Poland in a loud voice for one of the most persecuted groups in the world, Christians. We consider the Human Rights Council to be the main human rights body within the United Nations system, playing a key role in ensuring compliance with human rights standards. That is why Poland has submitted its candidacy for membership of the Human Rights Council for the period 2029-2031. Our candidacy reflects our commitment to promoting and protecting human rights around the world. Distinguished Mr. President, Your Excellencies, esteemed delegates, The United Nations was established 80 years ago. This anniversary shows how far we have come, but also how many challenges still lie ahead. Today we know that international cooperation is not an option, it is a necessity for all of us. It is unacceptable that aggressors begin to march with impunity through other people's territories and perpetrators of war crimes sleep peacefully without accountability every day. Let me remind you that after World War II, there was no room for relativizing crimes, at least in case of the most important commanders who gave orders. There was Nuremberg. There was a court, there was a name and a family name, there was a charge and a sentence, because it was not just about revenge, it was about principles. And today it's also about principles to make sure that crime is not rewarded and that the law is never replaced by force. Today, we must return to that spirit. We must build an international system of accountability that will not hesitate to call evil by its name, regardless of the flag it bears on its shoulder. We must make it clear there are borders, there are human rights, there is international law, and anyone who violates it should face severe consequences. But it is not going to happen by itself, ladies and gentlemen, for the world order is not given once and for all. It depends precisely on us, on the governments, institutions, but most importantly, on societies. As one of the Nobel Peace Prize laureates once said, neutrality helps the oppressor always, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Let these words be not just a warning, but also a call to action here and now. Thank you for your attention.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Poland. The Assembly will now hear an address by His Excellency Daniel Francisco Chapo, President of the Republic of Mozambique. I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Jeb is also here in studio. The UN, right now, you're watching live the UN meeting, and they're discussing some major world issues right now. Earlier, you just heard from the president of Poland speaking, and so this has been going on all day. We're going to step aside for just 2 minutes. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Jeb is also here in studio. So we want to get now to something that happened a little earlier in case you missed it. So let me set the scene for you. A months-long multi-agency investigation culminated into a massive drug bust on September 4th, resulting in the seizure of nearly 11,000 pounds of meth, over half a pound of fentanyl, more than 600 grams of cocaine, 13 firearms, and more from what the York County Sheriff's Office described as a criminal organization operating out of a barbershop in Clover. Again, that is a massive operation, a massive drug bust. We heard from officials there in York County, the York County Sheriff's Office earlier. In case you missed it, let's take a listen in.
Okay, we're going to get started. Deputy Trent Ferris, Public Information Officer for the York County Sheriff's Office. Thank you all for coming today. We have a lot of people behind me, and if I forget somebody that's not mentioned here on this list, I apologize. But hopefully we'll get all that figured out here soon. We have the York County Sheriff's Office, Clover Police Department, Chester Sheriff's Office Narcotics and Drone Unit, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, ATF Task Force Officer, the DEA, ATF, the York County Sheriff's Office SWAT Team, and Piedmont EMS. We're here to talk about a significant narcotics investigation, arrest, and drug seizure. I'm going to go over the facts, and then we're going to have Sheriff Tony Breeden, Chief Grice, and Solicitor Brackett come speak to you. The investigation started in February this year, and the arrests happened on September 4th. It all began with controlled purchases and using confidential informants and undercover police officers. Following complaints from the community about drug activity and violent crime in the area of Clover, including a shooting at Roosevelt Park in Clover during a Little League baseball game when kids were on a field playing. That's when the investigation intensified. In this case, all the accused were part of a tightly knit, organized group, and it took nearly 8 months to infiltrate and gather sufficient evidence on everyone involved, leading to the arrests. To the table to my right, you'll see that there were nearly 11 pounds of methamphetamine, 602 grams of cocaine, 388 grams, that's almost 0.8 pounds more than half a pound of fentanyl, 15 grams of crack, 1,595 grams of marijuana, 12 dose units of oxycodone, 12 dose units of Xanax and alprazolam, and also 13 firearms. One was stolen, and one was a shot-off shotgun. More than $7,800 was seized. We're going to scroll through some of the people who were involved in this. The folks who were arrested. The entire operation was run through a barbershop in Clover, barbershop/convenience store at 501 Kings Mountain Street in Clover. Next slide. Aaron Jerome Floyd. He was arrested with 11 pounds of methamphetamine. He is one of the top people in the group. He's a documented gang member and leader of the Blood Gang sets in Clover and the surrounding areas. Next slide. Frederick Stevens Jr. is currently out on bond from Charlotte for attempted murder, attempted first-degree murder, and assault with a deadly weapon with an intent to kill. Next slide. Houston Santonio Williams was in possession of 257 grams of fentanyl, that's half a pound, and if convicted, it's a mandatory minimum of 25 to 40 years, and Solicitor Brackett will talk about that here in a moment. Tamal Gerald Francis was located and arrested in Charlotte on the morning of the operation, that was September. He was in possession of approximately 20 grams of fentanyl, 8 grams of marijuana, and a handgun. He was entered into NCIC for our charges. However, he received a bond and was released from a Charlotte jail over the weekend. He is still at large. So if you know where Tamel Gerald Francis is, please call Crime Stoppers of York County at 1-877-409-4321 or go to crimestoppersofyorkcounty.com. Next slide, Cornell Anthony Tucker. Tucker lived in the barber shop where the incident took place at 501 Kings Mountain Street. Tucker oversaw the daily operations at that location and also distributed drugs from that shop. Draquan Tyreek Starr, he was a suspect of an armed robbery that took place in Gaston County, North Carolina, hours before the operation took place on September 4th in York County. The remaining people, Traquise Robbins, Jarius Tariq Brown, Derek Maurice Middleton, Quantavious Kennedy, all also had narcotics and distribution charges. Next, I'd like to invite Sheriff Breeden for a few comments.
Just want to reiterate and emphasize that, certain agencies and certain departments can't do this without the multi-jurisdictional drug unit. And without the cooperation of state, local, and federal agencies, some of these things aren't possible. So I think that's the big emphasis, is the success of the drug unit and everything that it does, and also the leadership. Chief Watts, for years, leadership that he's given me, also Chief Yurta, Chief Crosby, and Chief Trail will speak, but it's the entire drug unit and also the leadership that Solicitor Brackett has. And people just need to understand that those partnerships, especially with federal agencies that come in and make this possible to go to other states and things like that. So that's really what the key is. These things can't happen in certain agencies without the partnership that everybody has. So thank you.
Good morning, Chief Grice, Cleveland Police Department. I want to reiterate everything that they all said, and I want to take this time to thank everybody that was involved from the local level all the way up to the federal level. Without any part of that, none of this probably would have happened. And as the sheriff mentioned, smaller agencies have a hard time with drugs because it takes so long, and there's intense investigations that has to happen. And here in York County, being part of the multi-jurisdictional drug unit, and with the relationship of all these guys that we all have, that's what made this happen. And I know that other agencies in other parts of the state and stuff have tried to pattern after this, and it didn't work nowhere near as good as it did. And I think that has to do with the personal relationships that we all have. But with that being said, having that team is the reason that there's criminals off the street today, drugs off the street, money that has been taken that these criminals were using to make their operation bigger and better, that police has it in their custody now. And all that's thanks to these guys that took care of that. And I want to thank all of them at this time for the help that we've received from them in the Clover area.
Good morning. I'm Kevin Brackett, the solicitor for the 16th Circuit, the chief prosecutor here in York County. I appreciate everyone coming out today to learn about this incident and learn a little bit more about the work that's been done. At the outset, as is required and I am ethically bound to do, I have to remind everybody that these are charges at this point. They have not been convicted, and everybody charged with a crime in the United States is presumed innocent until they are proven guilty in a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt. That is a burden that I am very excited to meet in the courtrooms here in York County because of the outstanding work that's been done by the Multi-Jurisdictional Drug Enforcement Unit. For those of you that aren't familiar, more than 25 years ago, almost 30 now, all of the agencies in York County came together to form a one central unit to deal with narcotics and the problems that are posed by narcotics in our community. Every agency, every law enforcement agency, and my office have come together to address this issue, and this is an example of what happens when all these agencies come together and collaborate on an investigation. This is also an example for those of you that ever wonder about whether or not narcotics are a victimless crime. When you look at what goes on with narcotics and the attendant violent crime that surrounds narcotics trafficking, you cannot help but notice that violent crime and dealing drugs they go hand in hand, like peanut butter and jelly. Half of my homicides are drug-related. So the work that they're doing doesn't just interdict narcotics and make it more challenging for dopers and addicts to find drugs and for people to sell and make money and profit off of the addicts. It also reduces violent crime. So we're very, very grateful for the work that the Multi-Jurisdictional Drug Enforcement Unit does. We're also, we have had the narcotics, or the fentanyl trafficking statute in place now for about a year and a half, and that statute is already proving to be a very, very useful tool in dealing with the damage that fentanyl does to our communities and the number of people that are dying every single day in South Carolina. The last time I looked, it was 5 a day. There was one every 3 to 3.5 days in York County. Those numbers are coming down, which is good news. The bad news is that the numbers are coming down because people are just, we're running out of people to die. The addicts are dying, and I think that is one of the tragedies that's come about from the fentanyl epidemic, is that it is killing the user base and reduction of demand, because the people who buy it are one by one dying off. So I don't know whether anybody has any questions about this, but again, this is the right here on the table in front of me. This is the evidence, and this is the proof that narcotics are very much a problem in our community, and the work that the team has done in this particular case, particularly with some of the violence that surrounded these guys and the allegations against them for shooting up a baseball field with a bunch of kids on it. That is absolutely unacceptable. And one of the other things I did want to mention is that we have people that come down here from Charlotte. This is something that has, if you've been following me for any amount of time, 20 years ago, I put a billboard up at the state line with faces of people that were convicted here in York County, but they came down from Charlotte natives who were getting large amounts of time. I hate to report, but the situation hasn't improved in 20 years. And I don't know what it's going to take to get Raleigh to take crime seriously in North Carolina. I have no influence over them except to stand here in South Carolina and complain that their problems are washing over the border into my community, the community that we're responsible for keeping safe. So I implore Raleigh to start funding their criminal justice system appropriately so they can address their cases quickly, and do away with this structured sentencing policy that they put in place many years ago, which does not hold offenders accountable and does not scare them away from a life of crime. When they come down here, they experience true accountability. Up in Charlotte, they don't, because the criminal justice system there is not funded. When you ask for a jury trial up in North Carolina and Charlotte, it could take 3 years to get you into court. Here, we'll have you there in under a year. And when you get convicted, you will go to prison for a long period of time. So I take this opportunity to remind the criminal element in Charlotte that this is the last place you want to do business. And second, to ask Raleigh to once again take a hard look at how you're funding criminal justice and the policies that you're implementing in North Carolina to hold offenders accountable. Because until you do, we're going to continue to have this problem. And nothing's going to change in Charlotte, nothing's going to change in North Carolina until they address that. So thank you again for coming today, and we'll entertain any questions that you might have.
I actually have a question pertaining to gangs. Is this entire group gang-related, or just the first individual?
I would defer to somebody from the DEU, or if someone up here wants to field that one. They haven't, what he said, in case you didn't hear it, was they haven't confirmed the entire group is, but some of them are.
Can you elaborate on exactly how this works? I know a barbershop was involved. Was there some sort of sport going on inside of the barbershop? Elaborate on that.
Well, unfortunately, as you know, we can't go into the details. Cases are supposed to be tried in court, not tried in the media, so we can't go into the details and the evidence in too much detail, except to let you know that Clover is safer today than it was a couple of weeks ago because of the work that they've done, but we're not allowed to talk too much about the evidence and so forth because that would potentially affect.
From what I was told, that there was a barbershop / convenience store, and the operation was working out of that barbershop / convenience store, and that's about all we could tell you about it.
Andrew Dyson, the Herald, thank you for having us. Has a decision been made to prosecute these people in South Carolina state court or federal court or both? And B, is there any reason to believe that drugs came from Charlotte or anywhere else for that matter, and has this put a dent in what we call a drug pipeline or a drug
So currently, these people are all charged in state court, but we always review every single case to determine whether or not the most effective prosecution can take place in state or federal court. So we're always open to the possibility that our colleagues in the federal system might be the better way to go. Our fentanyl laws are tough in South Carolina, so oftentimes it's South Carolina is the best venue for that. I can't say where all these drugs came from. I know the fentanyl came from Mexico. I'm pretty confident about that, and the precursors came from China, so we all kind of understand that. But as far as the impact, the overall impact is hard to gauge, but I can tell you the direct impact in Clover is significant. It is harder to find drugs today than it was 2 weeks ago, as I told you now. There's always people that are willing to foolishly step up and take people's place, and we'll deal with them as they do. But right now, it has definitely had a very positive impact on narcotics, the ease with which people can find drugs in Clover, at least in the short term, Andrew.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the murder, the suspect that had been charged with murder in North Carolina? So he was out on bond in North Carolina and then found to be involved in this as well? Is that what you all said?
I know that the individual was charged in North Carolina with North Carolina offenses. I know nothing about those, but he was arrested and released, and we were also looking at him at the same time for our incidents and our situation here in South Carolina. And that's one of the symptoms of having this underfunded system up there is that the jail, the detention center in Charlotte, is chronically overcrowded, and they have to make really hard decisions about who they're going to hold. Even people that are dangerous, people that have shot and killed people here, I've had to go to North Carolina and beg the judges up there not to release them. Somebody who shot a police officer, didn't kill him, but shot a police officer, a highway patrolman some years ago, I had to go and sit in court and ask the judge not to set a bond because they routinely set a bond on fugitives that are wanted in South Carolina, and these people don't show up. And they're forced to do that because their situation is so dire with the overcrowded docket and the overcrowded detention center, they can't hold them. So people that would not get a bond in South Carolina are released up in Charlotte, and they're released oftentimes to commit more crimes. So.
Chief Bryce, you mentioned that it's harder for smaller communities like Clover to have made a bus like this. Elaborate how big of a bus this is for the size of Clover and what the message sends to the folks who are looking to see this video. This is probably more drugs they've seen in their entire lifetime, and you all have been able to do this in a couple of months.
That is correct. There's drug trafficking and stuff that goes on just about every day, some on the smaller scale, but this is a huge scale for what we're seeing in our area. I hope there's no more operations this big in Clover. If there is, I'm not aware of it at this time. But this affects from the small people all the way up to the big people, and it affects people from every walk of life. And Clover is a whole lot safer because of this. And there's no way that a smaller agency, a lot of smaller agencies that are around that could put the personnel out to do what needs to be done if we didn't have the structured multi-jurisdictional task force that we have that can devote the time and the expertise to do what they did. They performed this with precision.
with great knowledge and everything, and they crossed every T and dotted every I, and did an excellent job. And that was something that we're part of it, but we couldn't do it by ourselves.
Can you talk a little bit more about, and I just want a two-part question.
Okay.
You may not be able to comment on these, but obviously we were out there when the incident happened at the baseball game. Is there anything
Yes, ma'am.
you can say about what was going on there in hindsight? And then the second question has to do with the community aspect of this. It was mentioned that some of this investigating started in February, the rest obviously took place more recently. Can you talk about what from the community led to all of this?
The incident that happened at the baseball game, I can't say a whole lot about it because I still think that's pending in court, and I don't want to do anything to hinder the case. But spotlight on some of the activity and stuff that was going on, even though that started somewhere else and moved to the baseball game. But the drug team from that point stepped up their investigation to help get some of these people off the street that were involved, that went hand in hand together. If that answers your question without damaging the case. Okay. Okay.
Question to Dean, if I may. You keep saying Clover, and Clover is 1 mile in a circle with about 8,000 people, but the address of Clover is 30,000, 40,000 people, including Lake Wylie, includes all the way up to the state line, down to the, almost to the Rockville City limits, 2 blocks of the territory. That's Clover address over by Lake Wylie. Can you address how you are handling this kind of problem in northwestern York County that literally touches Charlotte?
Yeah, I mean, and that it just goes to speak, like it's.
All right, so you're watching a press conference from earlier, York County Sheriff's Office, talking about a major drug operation that they were able to dismantle. Again, that press conference was from earlier. So we want to step aside from that. We're going to check in with Siobhan Riley in just 2 minutes. Again, we'll be back here in 2 minutes on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Jeb is here in studio. So we want to talk about a topic and an issue and a concern that's been prevalent in our community here in Charlotte for a while now, but more recently when we talk about Irina Zaruska and also that 4-year-old boy that was shot while he was asleep A stray bullet hit him. This was last week. This is a conversation I'm hearing. I heard the conversation in the barbershop about solutions and what needs to be done. And I'm sure you hear it at home and hear in your workplace, out and about crime and what the community needs to be done. So we have Siobhan Riley here in studio. Siobhan, you spoke with Representative, first, thank you for joining us.
Yes,
I should say
glad
that.
to be here.
You spoke with Representative Terry Brown. Terry Brown, for those who don't know, represents I believe, Southwest. Okay.
Southwest, yes.
Mecklenburg County. So he was hitting on those same things, same conversations that we're talking about in the community about solutions to crime. You guys talked about that.
Yeah, he spoke he was very intensive when he had that conversation, and just saying that really it boils down to money. Today, they passed House Bill 307, which is also known as the Arenas Law. And Terry Brown talked about how he did vote for that, but he was still very critical of that bill, saying that it still doesn't address common issues like mental health, making sure they have the resources when it comes to funding police and making sure the DA's office has the resources they need. So he did say it's a step in the right direction, but it is not enough to address the crime here in Mecklenburg County. Those were his quote words.
Is there anything, I guess, actionable that he can do moving forward? Again, I know it's not all on him, but is there anything, a step forward that he wants to get accomplished?
One of the things he said, it's really important, as I mentioned about the DAs, he said you have to make sure that you are pairing the DAs with new public defenders. He also says with new clerks, you have to be able to handle this docket size. If you don't have that, then it just really doesn't mean much. So really it boils down to more funding, more money, and he's asking lawmakers to really do their part to make sure bills are getting passed to address this crime issue, but it comes down to funding. And he says mental health resources really is important. He talked a lot about the lack of mental health officers right now, that we just don't have enough of them.
Yeah, I know CMPD has a mental health unit, but again, that's something that I've heard, even in the barbershop. Look, we need to do more to address mental health. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tijuana Brown spoke about it at yesterday's council meeting, and she said we really have to make sure that we have enough support for these police. So really, everyone is saying it really boils down to making sure officers have the resources, making sure law enforcement that they have what they need in order to be successful to addressing these crime issues.
Yeah, not only does this impact, you think like a victim's family, like that young man's family, young boy's family, Arena's family, but also the officers and folks just adjacent to the situation impacted by it. Siobhan, thank you for your time. You can catch Siobhan's story tonight at 11 o'clock, a very important story that needs to be told. Thank you for your time. Thank you for talking about the studio.
Thank you.
All right, so do we want to go to break, Jeb? Yeah. Okay, let's go to break. We're going to take a quick break, 2 minutes. We'll be back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus in just 2 minutes. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Jeb is here in studio. So we want to head to Memphis, Tennessee. Happening right now, Memphis City Council is meeting. So this is what's happening. So you remember a couple of weeks ago, President Trump said that he was deploying troops, the National Guard, I should say, to Memphis, Tennessee, as he is trying to do this whole crackdown on crime initiative. So right now, the City Council voted on a resolution to reject the National Guard deployment. However, that resolution failed. So I just want to make this as plain as I can. City Council there in Memphis, the resolution to reject National Guard deployment failing. That vote failed. So we're hearing from the public there in Memphis, but also we're hearing from folks who would like to unionize library workers. So let's take a listen in. They have a lot to wrap their arms around here in this meeting. Let's take a listen in to the Memphis City Council meeting.
Follow the suit of Washington, D.C., like they did the unionized governmental workers there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nibley. Christopher Glasgow.
Good evening. Christopher Glasgow, 1059 Dumo Cove, Cordova, Tennessee, 38018. In a city as vibrant and diverse as Memphis, collaboration is the key to progress. That's where MOUs play a crucial role. And an MOU isn't just a document, it's a handshake on paper, a form of agreement that outlines the shared goals, responsibilities, and expectations between organizations, agencies, and community partners. Whether it's the Memphis Police Department working with community groups or local schools partnering with nonprofits, MOUs create clarity and accountability. In Memphis, where challenges like economic inequalities, public safety, and education require joint solution, MOUs help break down silos. They make sure everyone is on the same page, working with transparency and purpose. They build trust, not just between institutions, but with the public we serve. MOUs don't have the legal weight of contracts, but they carry the power of commitment. They move plans from conversations to collaborations. If we want to continue moving Memphis forward, we must keep forging smart and strategic partnerships. And MOUs are one of the strongest tools we have to do that, making sure we're just not working hard, but working together. Thank you. Local 3806.
Thank you, sir. Wade Boswell.
Hi, my name is Wade Boswell, 1870 Madison Avenue, 38104. I'm here, I represent the City of Memphis 911 dispatchers with CWA Local 3806. In 2006, we started representing the dispatchers. We've done that ever since then. Every year, we follow the process that's laid out by the city. The impasse, we come before this council every year that we negotiate those MOUs. We accept what the city council does. They either vote for the union or they vote for the city. This year, that's all's changed. We come up here, city council, this very city council, voted in favor of our impasse, and then the mayor comes down and one fell swoop destroys that trust that we had in this process. And we are here to encourage the city council to speak with the mayor and have him speak with the unions that we may rebuild that trust in the city of Memphis. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Brianna Bird.
720 Loeb Street. Once again, I'm up here representing the Memphis Mid-South chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America and speaking in support of the working class. Labor organizing has a proud history in Memphis. Unions have led the fight for workers' rights and civil liberties in this country, and there's no better example than the 1968 Memphis sanitation worker strike that changed the course of the civil rights movement. But labor organizing in Memphis has also had a dark history. It's a history that many have forgotten and that we now risk sliding back into. For decades before the civil rights movement, Boss Crump and the corrupt politicians of this city colluded with the Ku Klux Klan to threaten, intimidate, attack, and even lynch anyone involved with organizing black workers. Thankfully, our city's public sector unions now protect all workers, regardless of race, helping so many working people can provide for their families. Yet today, we must ask ourselves, is City Hall rejecting the victories of the multiracial labor movement? Why would anyone try to bring back Boss Crump's white supremacist union-busting tactics? We're at a crossroads in our city's history. In a totally reactionary move, city officials are looking to invalidate all existing agreements with public sector unions. Not only does this disgrace our city's proud history of working class organizing, it exposes a dangerous ignorance of past oppression. This comes at a time when Memphis public library workers are organizing for the workplace safeguards and job protections that, frankly, they should already have. Public libraries are a pillar of learning and community, and we have the duty to protect the people who keep them running. So we call on Mayor Young to drop his legal crusade against city unions. We also call on the City Council to reclassify our library workers appropriately as civil servants, and on Mayor Young to issue an executive order allowing the library workers united to collectively bargain. As we find ourselves facing federal occupation at the center of history in the making, we must now decide which side of history we stand on. Are you with working class families in the black freedom struggle, or are you with the bosses, the billionaires, and the white supremacist union busters? It's time to choose. Which side are you on? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Cameron Stevens.
Good afternoon, City Council members. My name is Cameron Stevens, and I reside at 878 Willow Tree Circle, 38018. I'm a business agent for the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 369. You may know it as the IUOE. We've been working with the City of Memphis representing its employees for around 50 years. We have 4 MOUs with the City of Memphis: the Animal Shelter MOU, Construction Inspectors MOU, Heavy Equipment Operators MOU, treatment plants, sewer lift stations, flood control facilities, pollution control, hydrovac operators, and sewer environment MOUs. The jobs these members perform are not glamorous. They're often the thankless, dirty, back-breaking jobs that support this city's main infrastructure. With the recent reports and headlines being published by the local media of the City of Memphis mayor pushing to invalidate all MOUs in the city, it has sparked a lot of concern coming from our membership, causing our members to worry not only about their future as city employees, but also where their families are going to lie when their benefits are stripped away. We hope to move forward and continue to work with the city for the betterment of its employees' wages, benefits, working conditions, as we have for the last 50 years, to provide a better life not only for themselves, but also for their families. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Elizabeth Dyerson. Denise Ewell.
Of course, I'm not ready. Sorry. Okay, hi, my name is Denise Ewell. I live at 2939 Bartlett Crest Drive, Bartlett, Tennessee, 38134. I am a children's librarian at the Central Library. And at this moment, amid swirling policies and split realities, our library workers are not safe. Is there a reason this city council has not met with us or spoken out in support of our right to represent ourselves in a union of our peers, a right that is currently being threatened in this city with our rich and powerful union legacy? Okay. Is there a reason our issues have not been put on the committee agenda? Is there a reason, what representation do we have among you, our elected officials? That's all I have.
Thank you for your comments. Lisa Peterson.
Hi, my name is Lisa Peterson. I live at 5012 Newcastle Road. I work at the South Branch Library and have for just about 4 years. It's a job that I love. I love working with our communities. But without civil service and union representation, library staff don't have the same rights and protections as other City of Memphis divisions. We are living in a time where organizations like the American Library Association and the Every Library Institute are regularly sounding the alarm regarding attacks on libraries throughout the country. What Memphis library workers need in order to be able to best serve our communities is protection and security, not this unnerving knowledge that we would have no recourse if a current or future mayor decided to eliminate any or all library positions because our appointed status precludes us from taking concerns or complaints to the Civil Service Commission. City Council has the power to help us change this. By facilitating the process of reclassifying library workers as civil service, you can build a library division that fully reflects the honor, integrity, and dignity of city service, giving us the protections that will survive administration to administration. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Samara Solomon.
Hello, Samara Solomon, 1186 Ascend Drive, Memphis, Tennessee. Library workers have the respect of our community. We are trusted advocates who connect our neighborhoods with the resources they need. But do we have the respect of our city council? So far, no council member has taken real steps to help us change our status or spoken out in support of our right to collectively bargain, and we still have not been added to a committee agenda to discuss our need for civil service protections and bargaining rights. When our concerns are finally taken up in council, and when this council speaks out in support of all organized labor's bargaining rights in Memphis, then we will know that our work is not only honored by our communities, but is respected by our city's leadership. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Alexis Agnew.
Hello, Alexis Agnew, 4321 E-Lane. The TLDR version of this is I support the library's right to unionize, and I want to express my disappointment at the failing of Resolution 34. So on the positives, we have all the support here from the CWA and other unions. Love that. The not so positives are that this was the time to show courage, not fear. I do understand why the resolution was voted down. I understand that some of you may have felt scared. To those of you who supported the resolution, thank you, we see you. But to those of you who rejected it, maybe because you likely thought this would keep the president off your backs, or you were scared of what would happen if you voted against your party. Heck, you might even have supported the National Guard coming out of a misplaced sense of law and order. I understand that, and I just have bad news. It doesn't work. Kowtowing to a dictator never works. I don't know. I had a schoolyard bully. I don't know if any of you did. And, the way that works is you give your lunch money to the bully, and the next day they come back and they want more. And then the next day they want your money and they want your friend's money too. So, that's just kind of how these things tend to go. It doesn't ever work to give in. They take a little at a time, and then more, and then more, and then more. But there is an opportunity to redeem yourself, in my opinion anyway. And what's it worth? I'm just some citizen. I am not part of the library. That's why I continue to come up here every time, because I want you to know that this is not a partisan issue. This is not an issue of people who work for the library. As a normal citizen, I support their right to unionize. I think you should too. They're civil servants who deserve to be empowered. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Josh Adams.
Josh Adams, decarcerated Memphis, 1000 South Cooper Street. One of the city council people asked where we have been in the movement out in the streets. I was a mentor. I was a substitute teacher. And at the same time, I was doing local and national policy work. I was also doing brake light cleaning changes for many brake light changes for many elderly folks. One time at Rhonda Logan's church, and was canvassing from Michael and Easter Thomas's seat. At the same time, I worked at Memphis Public Libraries. And during that time, during the Strickland administration, we were also under the Trump administration, and we're also under the Bill Lee administration, and a lot of those people really hinged their work on misinformation. And we were worried at the library about whether or not we could run certain programs that talked about certain movements. One thing that protects workers is the civil service protection, especially when they're worried about their First Amendment rights being under attack, especially when they're worried about their jobs being under attack from administrations under Jim Strickland. He changed one of the Pink Palace's libraries, one of the Pink Palace Museum's monuments that represented a movement so that his name could be moved forward as a figure in that movement rather than Tammy Sawyer, who actually led the movement, to take him down 901 movement. And so when administrations act that way and administrations change, many of you all are term limited. There's going to be a new administration soon, right? And so the question is, how are workers going to be protected, right? Especially their First Amendment rights, as you all are laying out a red carpet for fascism. How are workers' rights going to be protected without civil service protection? And you all have that power. They should have had a meeting. Some folks I texted about this years ago. They should have had a meeting, should be on the agenda. Something needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. James Wall. Samuel Schaefer.
Street 38107. Good evening, council members. I am a proud history teacher at East High School in Memphis Shelby County Schools. I am also a proud union member. Each day after school, a large number of my students head across East Park to the Benjamin L. Hook Central Library, a place that is safe and welcoming, where they can continue to advance their education or just take a break after a long, hard day. My students rely on our libraries and our schools. Both of these institutions are made what they are by public sector workers. I am here today to ask this council to demonstrate real, tangible support for public sector workers who make this possible, especially our right to organize, like our city's library workers are attempting to do. Public sector work is a calling, and as a teacher, I know that when you do this kind of work, people bring their whole lives with them into the public spaces we maintain. We are on the front lines of helping people, whether that's a fireman responding to a car crash, a teacher being there for a student in trouble, or a library worker helping someone who has nowhere else to go for some peace, quiet, reading, internet access, or maybe just some air conditioning. We work long hours for modest pay because we love our communities. To make our jobs sustainable, we need a voice in our professions, which we accomplish through legally binding memorandums of understanding. Right now, this right is under threat from our city's political leadership. I have heard this council call for greater material support for our communities, so I want to ask you directly, why not reclassify our library workers as civil servants and support their right to organize? Why not put it on the agenda for your next meeting? This is the right thing to do, and it's the right way to make our city stronger. And also, you need to make sure we stand up to our mayor and protect all public sector workers' right to negotiate in good faith and have legally binding memorandums of understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Caroline Francisco.
Good evening, Council. Caroline Francisco, 1000 South Cooper Street. I'm grateful to see so many of our union brothers and sisters here in the room today, and so I'm here in solidarity with them and with all the workers in our city to make sure that this council continues to honor the MOUs of our public sector workers, as well as honor the library workers' request to reclassify and put them on the next agenda. I've heard several times from this council today a concern for the seniors of our city, right? A genuine concern to make sure our elders are food secure, are housed and fed. I'm so glad to hear that concern in the room. And so the surest way to actually make good on that promise is to make sure that Memphians have access to high quality union jobs that allow them to feed their families, and to make sure that every Memphian has access to the high quality public services that actually keep people safe. Our sanitation workers, our firefighters, our librarians.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. You're watching live. This is Memphis City Council. Right now, they're discussing issues like the National Guard and also possibly unionizing library workers. That's happening right now, again, here in Memphis, Tennessee. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to step aside. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Wow, we are rolling up on the top of the show, 8:42. Thank you for hanging with us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Jeb is also here in studio. We want to go back now to President Trump's speech from earlier today at the UN meeting. That speech, I saw it all over social media earlier today. He addressing things like the green energy initiatives, failures to end regional conflicts, migration policies, all that was addressed in President Trump's speech. Let's take a listen in case you missed it.
What order we're alive. I've also been working relentlessly, stopping the killing in Ukraine. I thought that would be, of the 7 wars that I stopped, I thought that would be the easiest because of my relationship with President Putin, which had always been a good one. I thought that was going to be the easiest one. But you know, in war, you never know what's going to happen. There are always lots of surprises, both good and bad. Everyone thought Russia would win this war in 3 days, but it didn't work out that way. It was supposed to be just a quick little skirmish. It's not making Russia look good. It's making them look bad. No matter what happens from here on out, this was something that should have taken a matter of days, certainly less than a week. And they've been fighting for 3.5 years and killing anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 young soldiers, mostly soldiers, on both sides, every single week, from 5,000 to 7,000 dead young people, and some in cities, much smaller numbers, where rockets are shot, where drones are dropped. This war would never have started if I were president. This was a war that should have never happened. It shows you what leadership is, what bad leadership can do to a country. Look what happened to the United States, and look where we are right now in just a short period of time. The only question now is how many more lives will be needlessly lost on both sides. China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy. Think of it. They're funding the war against themselves. Who the hell ever heard of that one? In the event that Russia is not ready to make a deal to end the war, then the United States is fully prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs, which would stop the bloodshed, I believe, very quickly. But for those tariffs to be effective, European nations, all of you are gathered here right now, would have to join us in adopting the exact same measures. I mean, you're much closer to the city. We have an ocean in between. You're right there. And Europe has to step it up. They can't be doing what they're doing. They're buying oil and gas from Russia while they're fighting Russia. It's embarrassing to them, and it was very embarrassing to them when I found out about it, I can tell you that. They have to immediately cease all energy purchases from Russia. Otherwise, we're all wasting a lot of time. So I'm ready to discuss this. We're going to discuss it today with the European nations, all gathered here. I'm sure they're thrilled to hear me speak about it, but that's the way it is. I like to speak my mind and speak the truth. As we seek to reduce the threat of dangerous weapons today, I'm also calling on every nation to join us in ending the development of biological weapons once and for all. And biological is terrible, and nuclear is even beyond, and we include nuclear in that. We want to have a cessation of the development of nuclear weapons. We know, and I get to view it all the time. Sir, would you like to see? And I look at weapons that are so powerful that we just can't ever use them. If we ever use them, the world literally might come to an end. There would be no United Nations to be talking about. There would be no nothing. Just a few years ago, reckless experiments overseas gave us a devastating global pandemic. Yet despite that worldwide catastrophe, many countries are continuing extremely risky research into bioweapons and man-made pathogens. This is unbelievably dangerous. To prevent potential disasters, I'm announcing today that my administration will lead an international effort to enforce Biological Weapons Convention, which is going to be meeting with the top leaders of the world by pioneering an AI verification system that everyone can trust. Hopefully the UN can play a constructive role, and it will also be one of the early projects under AI. Let's see how good it is, because a lot of people are saying it could be one of the great things ever, but it also can be dangerous, but it can be put to tremendous use and tremendous good, and this would be an example of that. Not only is the UN not solving the problems it should, too often, it's actually creating new problems for us to solve. The best example is the number one political issue of our time, the crisis of uncontrolled migration. It's uncontrolled. Your countries are being ruined. The United Nations is funding an assault on Western countries and their borders. In 2024, the UN budgeted $372 million in cash assistance to support an estimated 624,000 migrants journeying into the United States. Think of that. The UN is supporting people that are illegally coming into the United States, and then we have to get them out. The UN also provided food, shelter, transportation, and debit cards to illegal aliens. Can you believe that? On the way to infiltrate our southern border. Millions of people came through that southern border. Just a year ago, millions and millions of people were pouring in, 25 million altogether over the 4 years of the incompetent Biden administration. And now we have it stopped, totally stopped. In fact, they're not even coming anymore because they know they can't get through. But what took place is totally unacceptable. The UN is supposed to stop invasions, not create them and not finance them. In the United States, we reject the idea that mass numbers of people from foreign lands can be permitted to travel halfway around the world, trample our borders, violate our sovereignty, cause unmitigated crime, and deplete our social safety net. We have reasserted that America belongs to the American people, and I encourage all countries to take their own stand in defense of their citizens as well. You have to do that because I see it. I'm not mentioning names. I see it, and I can call every single one of them out. You're destroying your countries. They're being destroyed. Europe is in serious trouble. They've been invaded by a force of illegal aliens like nobody's ever seen before. Illegal aliens are pouring into Europe. Nobody's doing anything to change it, to get them out. It's not sustainable. And because they choose to be politically correct, they're doing just absolutely nothing about it. And I have to say, I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law, but you're in a different country. You can't do that. Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately. This cannot be sustained. What makes the world so beautiful is that each country is unique. But to stay this way, every sovereign nation must have the right to control their own borders. You have the right to control your borders, as we do now, and to limit the sheer numbers of migrants entering their countries and paid for by the people of that nation that were there and that built that particular nation at the time. They put their blood, sweat, tears, money into that country, and now they're being ruined. Proud nations must be allowed to protect their communities and prevent their societies from being overwhelmed by people they have never seen before, with different customs, religions, with different everything. Where migrants have violated laws, lodged false asylum claims, or claimed refugee status for illegitimate reasons, they should, in many cases, be immediately sent home. And while we will always have a big heart for places and people that are struggling and truly compassionate, answers will be given. We have to solve the problem, and we have to solve it in their countries, not create new problems in our countries. And we are very helpful to a lot of countries that are just not able to send their people anymore. They used to send them to us in caravans of 25,000, 30,000 people each. These massive caravans of people pouring into our country, totally unchecked and unvetted. But not anymore. According to the Council of Europe in 2024, almost 50% of inmates in German prisons were foreign nationals or migrants. In Austria, the number was 53% of the people in prisons were from places that weren't from where they are now. In Greece, the number was 54%, and in Switzerland, beautiful Switzerland, 72% of the people in prisons are from outside of Switzerland. When your prisons are filled with so-called asylum seekers who repaid kindness, and that's what they did, they repaid kindness with crime. It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. Let's see, I can tell you. I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell. In America, we've taken bold action to swiftly shut down uncontrolled migration. Once we started detaining and deporting everyone who crossed the border and removing illegal aliens from the United States, they simply stopped coming. They're not coming anymore. We're getting a lot of credit, but they're not coming anymore. This was a humanitarian act for all involved because on the trips up, thousands of people a week were dying. Women were being raped. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Raped, horribly beaten, raped. On the trip up, the journey up, it was a long walk. It was a long, arduous journey, indeed. And it was also a historic victory against human trafficking throughout the region. What we did was a victory, and we saved so many lives of people that wouldn't make the journey. That journey was loaded up with death. Loaded up with death. Dead bodies all along the roads of jungles. To get up, they go through jungles, they go through areas so hot you couldn't breathe. They were dying of suffocation, areas so hot that you couldn't breathe. Dead bodies all over. By them not coming, we're saving tremendous numbers of lives. My people have done a fantastic job in doing what they did, and the American public agrees with it. I mean, I was very proud to see this morning I have the highest poll numbers I've ever had. Part of it is because of what we've done on the border. I guess the other part is what we've done on the economy. Joe Biden's policies empowered murderous gangs, human smugglers, child traffickers, drug cartels, and prisoners from all over the world. The previous administration also lost nearly 300,000 children. Think of that. They lost more than 300,000 children, little children, who were trafficked into the United States on the Biden watch, many of whom have been raped, exploited, and abused, and sold. Sold. Nobody talks about that. The fake news doesn't write about it. With many others, young children who are missing or dead. And we found a lot of these children, and we're sending them back, and we've been sending them back to their parents. They said, nobody knows who they are. They said, where do you come from? And they'll give us a country, and we'll find out, and we'll figure it out, and we'll bring them back to their homes. And the mother and father rush to the door, and their tears in their eyes. They can't believe that they're seeing their son or daughter, their little son or daughter again. We've done almost 30,000 of them so far. Any system that results in the mass trafficking of children is inherently evil. Yet that is exactly what the globalist migration agenda has done, and it's what it's all about. In America, those days, as you know, are over. The Trump administration is working, and we are continuing to work to track down the villains that are causing this problem, and also, as I said, to get back the 30,000 we've already returned. Now I think we're going to have another. We're going to find.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. That is President Trump, his speech he delivered earlier today at the UN. Again, that speech you're probably seeing all over social media. We've had it here on Live Impact News. Look, guys, hey, we're at the top of the show. We are at the top of the show. Thank you for hanging with us, being with us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'll see you tomorrow, but first, I'll see you at 11 o'clock here on WCNC Plus and WCNC Charlotte. Have a great night.